We've got a special guest on our channel today, Hana Whitfield, and she was Sea Org member number 2 back in 1967 when she was a young woman. She also became one of the first captains of a Sea Organization vessel back in that time period, and she had never had any experience on vessels or sailing at all before that. She later left Scientology and became a major critic of Scientology and L. Ron Hubbard. But we have her on here today as a guest to talk about Scientology's recent announcement that they had purchased and renovated L. Ron Hubbard's villa on Las Palmas in the Canary Islands, which is where he researched OT3, the Xenu Story, and where he recorded Ron's Journal 67. She's got some interesting stories to tell. She's one of the few people that are still alive who actually was at that villa many times. And you're going to be surprised at what she has to say about how Scientology is representing that villa. Without further ado, here's Hana Whitfield. Welcome everybody to our channel, Scientology Peeling the Onion. My name's Mark Fisher, and I'm here with my co-host, Janis Gillham Grady. How you doing, Janis?
I'm doing great, Mark. Good day, everyone, and welcome back to Peeling the Onion. It's been a while for me. I've been off vacationing, visiting with grandchildren and so forth. So I'm got to get back in gear and back into the swing of this.
That's right. Well, we've got an exciting show for everybody today, and we've got somebody who we've been wanting to get for, on our show for some time, and she's got an amazing history, and you've known her for many, many, many years, and she was a friend of your mother's. I know that. So why don't you go ahead and introduce our guest for today?
Yeah, our guest, I've known her since 1968, so that's like nearly 60 years that I've known her. And yeah, she was like one of my mom's best friends, and that's Hana Whitfield. And she was the second Sea Org member, Sea Org project member to sign up after John O'Keefe. And she's got a lot of history. And she was at Villa Estrada, which we're going to talk about. And she was actually there in Las Palmas. My mother actually was the Commodore steward and was working in and lived in that villa, but she's not around to interview. So we're going to talk to Hana about her trips to the Villa Estella.
That's right. And the reason we're talking about this Las Palmas villa is because Scientology, on the last LRH birthday event just a few weeks ago, announced that they had purchased and renovated the villa in Las Palmas. And this is where Hubbard, supposedly, did OT3 or went through the breakthroughs of OT3, the Wall of Fire. And then also Ron's Journal 67 is a famous lecture that he gave.
That's where he ended up with the Enchanter and the Avon River, which were later changed to the Diana and the Athena.
Great. Well, we're going to go ahead and talk about that location with Hana Whitfield. And without further ado, here she is. Hi, Hana. How you doing?
Hi, I'm doing fine. Hi, Mark and Janis. Thanks for having me on.
Welcome. Thank you for coming on. So
yeah, you look fantastic.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. Yep, not doing too bad, actually.
Well, let me show this picture here. This is what Hana looked like when she was in the Sea Org back in the 60s, I guess, and in her Sea Org cap at the time, right?
Yeah, Mark, that was in 1969 or 1970 when I was in Los Angeles on a long mission.
Well, Mark, that would have been when Hana was the Deputy Commodore for the Pacific. So she ran the whole Pacific Los Angeles area as the Deputy Commodore.
And I tell you, it was a job and a half. I would never want to go through that again, Janis.
I know. I was on the sidelines watching.
Were you? Oh, gosh. Oh, gosh.
I'd see your telexes going back and forth with Hubbard, and the different situations you had to deal with. And,
right. Yeah, it was difficult. It wasn't an easy job.
Right. Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Janis. Do you want to start with Las Palmas, or where did you want to start with the story?
Well, I know Hubbard was already in Las Palmas when Hana, you showed up in Las Palmas after the Avon had already sailed from Hull down to Las Palmas.
That's correct. The Avon arrived in Las Palmas from Hull sometime early in 1967. I don't remember exactly when. I joined.
Let me show the map real quick so people can see that. Okay.
Okay.
So England, of course, is up at the top of the map. You can't see it. You see France and Spain, and then down off the coast of Africa and the Canary Islands down in the lower part, you see Tenerife and Las Palmas, which is down there.
That's
right?
Yeah.
Here's are more close.
Right. It's off the coast of Morocco.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Now that trip from Hull to Las Palmas, they had crew members there that didn't know what they were doing, including my mother. And they went through the Bay of Biscay and bobbed around like a cork on someone shaking up a bottle, you know. And I remember my mom telling me, and even Neville and Jovan Stoughton, about how they had a rope tied from the bridge to the forward, and you had to tie yourself to that rope to get to the bridge, because you couldn't go inside to get anywhere. You had to go outside, and there were the waves just crashing over, and they had to tie themselves to get from the forecastle where the dormitories were to get on watch at the bridge, or to even go to the dining room. You had to go outside.
That's correct. Yeah, you had to have that connection to that one rope so you weren't washed overboard. That was absolutely essential.
Now, Hana, you showed up in Las Palmas after they'd already done that trip from Hull to Las Palmas. But when I saw you in Valencia, you were already captain.
Yes, I was already the captain of the Avon River.
Yeah.
I arrived in Las Palmas in August 1967. I think it was, I don't remember exactly what time in August. So I had a few weeks on the ship to find my feet. It was, it was such a different world. I mean, we were on a wreck. The Avon River was nothing like it looked like. It was just this rusted out hulk that was sitting on these wooden blocks just above the sand. And I mean, there was no galley to make food. There was no nothing. We couldn't use the toilets. It was a wreck. And Hubbard wanted us to fix up the ship and make it ship shape so it could sail.
Yeah.
And you had no experience, I take it, no prior sailing experience.
Oh no, Mark. I mean, I'd never been on a ship in my life, not even a sailing boat, you know.
Right.
So it was an experience.
But within 4 months, you were the captain.
I don't remember. When was I first made captain? In Valencia. In Valencia, yes.
Yeah.
After the whole track recall mission, which was in May 1968. So I was first made captain sometime during May 1968.
Yeah, so very short time.
It wasn't immediate, Janis. I mean, it was from August 67 until May 68. So.
All right. So when you arrived in Las Palmas, what was your first job on the Avon?
I was a swamper.
You're a swamper. And then somehow you managed to get on the communication lines to deliver traffic between the Avon and the villa?
Well, Hubbard made me the master at arms on the Avon River. So I was fairly quickly upgraded from swamper to master at arms, which was a whole new job, whole new posting. I didn't know what I was. Well, I'd done the org executive course at St. Hill earlier, so I had an idea of what an ethics officer, same as a master at arms, was supposed to do. So I had some idea, you know, and I'd just run around and monitor the crew conditions and make sure they were doing okay. And, you know, nobody was, you know, getting ready to blow up the ship and so on. They were all okay and doing their jobs. So, and then Jill van Staden, who was the supercargo, she was like the Hubbard executive secretary in an organization. She had to go on mission, and she was the one who did the courier runs to the villa every day to pick up Ron's mail, bring it to the ship so it could be mailed out, and give him the mail that had come in for him.
Right.
So I was told I had to do the courier runs. Now, I'd never driven in my life before, and here was this little Mini that I had to learn to drive in one day with Jill shouting at me through the Las Palmas traffic, which was crazy. And the Spaniards are crazy. And so we would drive out to the villa. That's the first time I saw it. Out of Las Palmas, up along the coast road to this point. The coast road sort of curved around, and the drive into the villa was just a short driveway, pebbled driveway. And we drove onto the driveway, stopped the car, got out, walked into the villa. Hubbard met us and was his usual very, very genial, welcoming self. You know, that was Hubbard at his best. He was always beaming and accommodating, and, you know, nothing was ever wrong. And anyway, so we walked in, and I was like cowering in the background, and Jill gave him his mail and collected up the mail that had to be sent. And Hubbard immediately invited us to have soft drinks. He had his usual huge 8 or 16 ounce glass of his special drink, and we had Cokes or something.
Yeah, it was Tab.
Tab, was it Tab? Okay.
Yeah.
And he took us into the living room, and it was a normal American type living room with sofas and easy chairs and carpets. And I don't remember the decor that much. I was sort of starstruck.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I do remember the view out that window. There was nothing but glass across the front of the living room. And the view out was incredible. It was nothing but ocean. From one side all the way to the other, it was ocean.
Wow. So there's no backyard. It was just ocean.
Ocean, just ocean. And I went.
And a cliff, right? Was there a long drop cliff?
Well, yeah, there was a cliff, not far. If you walked up to the window, you could see the edge of the cliff. But you couldn't see down the cliff. I mean, it was too far away to see down, you know. But
I have a question. Was Mary Sue there with him too at the time?
No, not at the time. No.
So Virginia, Virginia Downsbury would have been his steward at that time.
I don't remember. Virginia used to be. I think that's correct. She used to be the steward on the ship before Hubbard moved into the villa. So maybe it was Virginia Downsbury.
Right. Because I know my mom replaced Virginia or worked with her for a while. And my mom was actually stationed at the villa, and she was, her boyfriend at the time was Haskell Cook, and Haskell was on the Avon.
That's correct.
And she was at the villa when Haskell fell off the Avon into the dry dock during the Sahara sandblast.
Right.
I
arrived, Janis, right after that accident, toward the end of second half of August 67. After Haskell fell, that's when I arrived.
I have another question for you. Was Hubbard there? Obviously, the Avon River was there, the ship, and you guys were there to get it ship shape or whatever. So it was in dry dock or whatever was going on, right? But was that the only reason he was in Las Palmas, or do you know if there was another reason or anything?
No, as far as I know, he was in Las Palmas to continue his research, which he claimed he was always doing, Mark, daily. And then the other part of it was to get the Avon River fixed and shipshape as you said, so it could sail. And his primary objective at that time was to do the mission into time. That was the main thing he was focused on.
Right. Right.
Yeah. For our viewers who don't know, The Mission into Time was a famous book that he wrote based on these expeditions that you all were part of. I know Janis, your mother, was part of it, where basically he would try and recall different things from his past lives of places he buried treasure in the Mediterranean or whatever, and then the ships would be sent out, and the Sea Org members would go out there to try and locate whatever it was he was, the locations, right?
Yeah, the Sea Org members would go out in little groups and little boats in groups, and they would try to find the location. Hubbard had stated where he had buried treasure, and if they found the location and they brought back enough evidence to Hubbard, like, well, so it's on a promontory, and then beside it is an old castle, and the castle looks like this, and beside that is thus and so. And if that rang a bell with him, he'd get overly excited. And the next day he'd go out with another crew to verify that that was the location.
Right. And, people have asked me, did they ever find any treasure? Well, I know one Lizzie says she did, and she still has the coin.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yes. That's the only person I know. But she still has the coin from the mission she did in the dinghy, I guess with Amos and someone else when they went ashore. And all these people going ashore in the dinghy were illegal. No one was checked in through immigration. It was done in the middle of the night. The Avon would anchor and the boat would be lowered and they'd row ashore in the silence and, dig around.
Yeah. It was all just Hubbard doing his thing. He didn't care for any laws, any rules, anything, Janis. His intention was superior to anything else.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, well, he was working for the greatest good.
Which was whatever he thought was the greatest good.
Making it go right. Yes.
And making it go right. Yeah. Well, I was actually on the second part of Mission into Time, which we did out of Corfu. We all went over to the Avon. Were you on that one?
I was the captain. Yes.
Yes. My mom was on it. I was on it. Quentin and Arthur were on it.
Yes.
And we did that and talk. I remember us stopping and swimming over the side and the dinghy, and people going and doing the little dinghy runs and so forth, and the clay demos that Hubbard would have people do on what their mission is.
That's right. That's right. We didn't find anything either.
Right. No, we didn't.
That was really a bust.
Well,
neither.
Janis, you were what, 12, 13 years old? How old were you then?
I was 12.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was 12 at the time. Yeah. Wow. But, I remember Jovan Staten telling me that when they'd go to the villa, they'd have dinner with LRH and have drinks. And I remember Neville saying that Hubbard used to sit around on deck on the Avon and drink with everybody.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Soon after I arrived on board in August, maybe within a week or 2 weeks, Hubbard had assigned, this was typical Hubbard. He assigned, when things weren't going right and the refit wasn't moving to his expectation, he would assign everyone else lower conditions, or he'd put the whole ship into a lower condition. And he'd leave it like that for a few days to a week. And then it was almost like he took pity on everyone. He'd suddenly upgrade us. He'd give us liberty. He'd give us various rights back and so on. And at one of those moments, he said, you know what, we need to spend more time together. And he arranged for the whole crew to come on deck in the evenings. He would join us and he would sit in his chair. It was on the forward well deck, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And we would sit on bales of rope or whatever was right on the deck. So all of us were clustered around him, and he would have his usual drink. Now, this time, Janis, it wasn't the normal thing. I heard later on from Yvonne that it was 7/8 rum and 1/8 Coke. Now, whether that's correct or not, I don't know, but that's what I heard from Avon.
I would believe my mother.
You'd believe your mom. Yeah. And then all of us had bottles of wine, wonderful Spanish wine that we passed around, and we sipped a little and passed the bottle on. And Hubbard would extol us in these enthralling stories that he had about other civilizations,
right?
And the Markabs and Xenu, and where's Xenu? No, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. He did not mention Xenu, the Markab Confederation and others. And he would point ahead and say, see, there's one of their spaceships going. And I remember looking up and seeing something going blip, 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 blip. And I thought, that's the Russian, what do you call it? That
satellite?
What?
So you
satellite?
It was the first Russian satellite that went up. Yeah, and I thought to myself, that's the Russian satellite. That's not the Markab Confederation, but I was too scared to say anything. I just sat there and said nothing. But anyway, Hubbard was in his total element when he did it. And that went on for about, I don't know, a week, 10 days maybe. And then the tide changed again, and it was back to work, and those events stopped.
Right. Now I remember Joe telling me that I don't remember, I think Neville was with him when they went to the villa, and my mom was the steward there, because Joe says, yeah, your mom was so tired she was falling asleep in the corner.
Right, I know. Yeah, no, your mom wasn't doing well at that time, Janis. No.
Right. And they were sitting around BSing, and mom having to wait up for them to clear the table. And then when they went outside to leave, the car wouldn't start. Oh, and so Joe said Hubbard was right there with them, pushing the car to, jump the clutch to get it to start.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And they were all drunk.
Oh my God. That had to be a hoot.
Yeah.
I never saw any of that. But I do remember once when Jill and I, when she was briefing me to take over to be the courier from her, when we were leaving, the first time I was driving the Mini, I had trouble getting the clutch working and the brake and the everything, the accelerator. And I took off with a roar, and Jill said, hey, hang on, don't scare the old man, because the pebbles were flying, I'm sure, at the back of the Mini. And I took a quick look in one of the rear view mirrors, and he was just standing there on the porch, his hands on his hips, with this huge grin on his face. He was loving it.
The reason that we're bringing this up is because they just announced at the LRH birthday event last month that, Scientology's been buying CST, so Church Spiritual Technology, all these historical locations where Hubbard used to live in Phoenix, in New Jersey, in Washington, D.C., and they're renovating them, putting in the original furniture, and just basically making them historical sites for the future. And so at this event, the commanding officer of CST, he announces that this is the location that they had in Las Palmas overlooking the cliff. And that's a photograph there underneath. It says 1967, which is when Hubbard would have lived there. And then that's a close-up of it right there, right? But this is yeah.
Is this supposed to be a representation of what was there in 1967?
That's what I'm understanding. I wasn't there, but if you see the photo, it says 1967, and it's got this picture here. Anyway, so they tell this whole story where they've renovated it. There was an addition built on by later owners, because it was been 50, 60 years or whatever, however long it was since that time. And they bought Hubbard's old station wagon that he had there. He had given it to some local in whatever, in the islands or whatever. And then they located it and they got it and they refurbished it, did the whole thing. They go through this whole rigmarole. Anyway, so they did that. And then they decided, here, we were bringing it back to a way it looked back in 67 when Hubbard was there. And that's a superimposition of Hubbard on it. But that's a picture actually that they showed to the people at the event there, and with the cliffside. And here it is here with the ocean and the cliff down below. But that photo there, it looks like they created it with artificial intelligence or something.
Yeah,
Is that
no.
the way you recall it looking?
No, not at all. That looks like a Bel Air representation of something on the, or Santa Monica or something. No, the villa was a typical Spanish building. This is a modern, cliffside
beach dwelling.
Owned by a millionaire somewhere.
It looks like something that you'd see in Malibu, or like it looks like a modern museum of art.
Yeah, or on Highway 1 or something, up to Monterey. This, but no. Hubbard's villa was a typical Spanish building with, I think, a tiled roof. It was beige, pale, sort of soft, muddy colored building. It was, it looked nothing. No, that is not a representation.
Well, this is breaking news, because the only people that Janis said that probably still around who used to go to that villa would be yourself and who? Joe Van Staden, Janis?
Joe Van Staden, yeah.
Leon Steinberg, I think, was there at one point, but
he's passed away.
Has Leon gone? I had no idea. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, about 4 years ago.
Really? Yeah. Sorry to hear that. Yeah.
But so the funny thing is that Scientology, Miscavige can come out and CST can come out and say, this is how it looked, when there's nobody around to challenge that except for our guest here today, Hana Whitfield, who was actually there many times.
Well, I hope they don't come after me now to get rid of me.
No, not at all. This is like surprising. I didn't think that this was you were going to say, I thought you were going to go, yeah, that's the way it looked, but no, it doesn't look like that.
No, Mark. No.
That's wild.
That's in Las Palmas, typically Spanish, a very thorough Spanish community that had been there for ages and ages. It's like any of the Spanish islands we used to go to with we visited with their buildings and so on. This has nothing to do with
it.
No.
Now, this could be the location, though, with the cliff and the ocean, but the house just doesn't look the same.
It looks, the location with that cliff could be the same. The waves and so on are a little tumultuous below. That probably is I don't know. It's probably a constructed thing, an A1 thing. Yeah. But no, that's no.
Yeah.
That's not the villa.
Okay. Well, there you go. So now, go ahead, Janis.
I was never at the villa, but I do have experience with one piece of furniture that was at the villa.
Oh.
And that was, and it's in my book, I call it the red chair from hell.
Oh,
because when the villa was closed down, all that furniture went to the ship. So it was on the Royal Scotsman.
That's right.
And when Hubbard had his motorbike accident and he couldn't lay down in a bed, he said he sent the steward down to the hold to get the armchair that was down there from the villa.
The one that he liked. Oh, wow. That's the one.
It was a red velvet chair.
He recovered in that chair?
Yes.
Wow. I had no idea.
Yes. And we called it the red chair from hell because we had to lower him into that chair, and then the arm of the chair was too low. So then we'd get cotton wool and we would stuff that under his arm and get him all comfortable, and then there was a point where we had his arm hanging from a tripod and he'd be yelling and screaming until we got him comfortable. And then one night he was finally settled down, ready to go to sleep. And we had to tie his head back in the chair so it wouldn't fall forward and wake him up.
God.
And the messengers on watch were tiptoeing out, and David Rousseau, the only male messenger at the time, tripped on the tripod.
Oh no.
Oh, you have got to be kidding.
Oh yeah, almost like that woke him up, and then David got kicked off of watch, and the girls had to settle him back down again. But anyway, I will never forget that red chair from hell, and that was his favorite chair from the villa.
You know, throughout that whole period, I'm an RN. You know, I graduated in the mid-60s in South Africa,
right,
with lots of postgraduate degrees. I was always grateful on the ship. There was only one time when, I don't think it was Hubbard, somebody else tried to put me into the position of being the medical officer or something like that, and I refused point blank. I said, there's absolutely no way I'm taking on responsibility for the healthcare of this mob
right.
on the ship in the Sea Org without being registered in the country, without having qualifications for that country. Are you kidding me? I refused point blank. And I was so grateful that I was never called on to help in that situation, because I know what happens to people who misrepresent themselves. And I wasn't about to be in that position.
Right, right. Well, you were smart.
Wow, I think so. I mean, in the long run, I think so. Yeah.
Now, this is Hubbard and Las Palmas, do you think? Is that what
I don't recognize the background at all, but that's, I think, I never saw him in that outfit in Las Palmas, but it fits, Mark. It may have been. Yeah,
it does fit. Yeah.
It may have been, yes. Yes.
Now, he was there doing his research, and then he eventually recorded there's a famous lecture for Sea Org members called Ron's Journal 1967, because it's on the Welcome to the Sea Org tapes lectures that you have to listen to when you first become a Sea Org member. You do training, and it's the Welcome to the Sea Org tapes. And I think it was like there's 7 or 8 tapes, and this was the last one that you listened to. Mm-hmm. And he's talking, and he's overlooking the ocean, and you can hear the wind blowing and the this and the that going on, right? And this is where he talks about OT3 and how he's just broken through the wall of fire, and he actually mentions Xenu in there. If Scientologists had really listened up, they wouldn't have had to wait till they got on OT3 to read the materials. He actually talks a little bit about Xenu in this lecture of RJ 67, right?
Right. That is correct. Yes, and how he broke through made that final breakthrough to come out the other end. That's correct.
Yeah. And Janis, you remember the tapes, right? I mean, I remember listening to them, because it was a dramatic tape because of the sound. I'm sitting here, it's cold, and there's wind blowing, and the ocean is blowing, all that,
Yeah.
I know.
He used to talk about Xenu and also the stars and so forth when we were on deck, when we would be sailing on the Apollo or the Scotsman. And I remember when we would sail into Tangier, that was another one of his spaceships hidden in the cliffs.
Well,
do you remember that?
Well, he mentioned that when we sailed past Corsica. He talked about, now that was on the whole track recall mission on the Avon River. He mentioned to us, he pulled us all into his little cabin after the bridge, under the bridge, and he mentioned that we were sailing past Corsica on the north to south, on the right side of Corsica, and he mentioned to us that there was this huge subterranean base in the mountains of northern Corsica. A special hand placed on a handprint in a rock would open that base. Never mentioned whose hand it was.
Right.
And that lights would come on automatically. Air conditioning and various things like that would occur automatically as the base opened. He didn't mention how it would open or if it was a huge opening through which spaceships could fly or only people could walk. But as you entered, he said it was vast. I mean, it went on forever, side to side and lengthwise. And he said there was a mothership in there and fleets of smaller vessels that were ready to go, supplies, uniforms, food, medical equipment, parts for the ships, fuel. I mean, you name it. It was perfectly, completely supplied, would last for decades, he said. And he wanted to gain access to it. I wondered to myself, I said, we're sailing past the northern mountains of Corsica right now. It would be so simple to deviate, go to starboard, just find a niche somewhere, as he loved to do in a cove or something, and just send a party ashore to see if they could find this particular handprint. It was under an overhang. Entrance was under an overhang so that you couldn't see it from above. I just wondered why he didn't do that. And I thought, as I did several other times about other situations, he doesn't want to be proven wrong.
Right.
And I thought that was why he didn't do that. But
yeah, he tells big stories,
Yeah, I kept that thought to myself. I never shared it with anyone. No.
Yeah.
No.
It's funny. It sounds like the way that the CST is set up with all of its materials stored in mountainsides on titanium plates.
Right. That is an incredible job. I mean, if you think of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for them to purchase the Villa Lorry, which was the villa in Tangier, because that one, I was at that one for, 3 months.
Okay.
So I knew that one well, and I knew, all the back roads and everything and around it and stuff like that. So let's see if their next event they buy the Villa Lorry.
That's a good possibility, Janis. That would be interesting.
Yes.
And of course, Janis, they've already bought Rifle in La Quinta.
Really?
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, which is where Janis was at for quite some time.
I wonder what Miscavige's thought is that having these historical sites would be an attraction and bring in new members. I mean, where's the connection? Why would I don't understand how
I know what it is.
What?
The wealthy Scientologists pay to go on tours of these places.
And they donate money.
I talked to one of them who had gone on a trip. I believe it was Corfu where they went, or Italy. Anyway, Nate Jessup was on the trip, and Claire Popham was on the trip. And so the two of them were there with, I think it was 99 other wealthy Scientologists telling Hubbard stories in these different locations.
Oh, man, that fits, Janis. Because a while ago, I wrote something up on Tony Ortega's site. Tony was talking about how Miscavige is shifting Scientology and it's changed. It's no longer concentrating on the lower levels and getting people in onto PE courses and this kind of stuff. And I wrote and said, no, I think he's shifting the emphasis to the rich and the wealthy. That's where he's going. With the doctors and vets and dentists and so on. So that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Do you remember why you all left Las Palmas at the time? Was the ship done and then you decided to leave, or do you remember why?
Yes, because Hubbard had a plan to release OT3 on January 1st, 1968. And he had a plan all along, I believe, now this is just my belief, Mark, that he would set up Valencia as his Sea Org base in the Mediterranean. He
And is it there on the map, Janis? Valencia?
Yes,
Yeah.
there it is. There
Yeah,
it is, right there.
right.
Yeah, right there. And
Okay.
I believe that that's what he wanted all along, because he had England as his clear base. He wanted a Mediterranean base for the OT levels and OT3, distinctly separate from his clear base in England. And he wanted the Avon River ready to go up there to release OT3. Well, the Avon River was never ready to train people and so on. That's when he purchased the Royal Scotsman to do that. But he was planning to get up to Valencia and release OT3 on the 1st of January 1968 and become the great new Commodore of the Sea Organization. Right. So Hubbard had developed everything in levels. You know, he had his original levels, moved up to Class 4 organizations, then moved to St. Hill in England, developed that, got everything he wanted out of that, and then he wanted more.
Right.
That was my thought.
Right. Well,
and then when Valencia rejected him, him and the ships were ordered out and so on, Hubbard was never the same ever again.
Right. I remember this. Sorry, go on.
His personality changed. His bubbliness disappeared. He was more morose. It was almost like he himself went PTS. If I can use that, I don't like to use those terms anymore, but he did. You know, he didn't. He just changed. He was not the same adventurous person anymore. Yes, he still went ahead and went to Corfu and so on, did things, but
right.
He was never the same.
You bring up the PTS thing, and of interest, in 73, when he had that motorbike accident,
yes,
that morning, Mary Sue had just briefed him that he was not allowed to enter Spain. And he went off on his...
Kidding.
Why was he basically kicked out of Spain? And back in 71, we and the messengers and aides, we stayed in Agadir in Morocco for a month while the ship went to Spain to handle our public relations, but he didn't go. And it looked like it was handled. And then here we are in 73 where it was unhandled. Yeah. And he did that motorbike ride. And when he came back, he said to me, he said, Mary Sue just told me I'm not allowed in Spain. I went PTS to Spain. So he admitted being PTS a potential trouble source and the effect of it.
What an incredibly stupid man he was. It defies understanding that with everything he had put together, I mean, whether it was for good or not, whether it was, anyway, he couldn't apply the techniques to himself. Even if he believed in them, he couldn't apply them to himself.
Right. Now, going back, Hannah, to the base being set up in Spain, in Valencia.
Yeah.
I was in Valencia. That's where I showed up in January 68.
Okay.
And the AO, the Advanced Organization, had already released OT3, and we had public on the ship. And then we had our drag the anchor and hit the rocks.
Right.
And the ship was assigned liability, at which point
I know.
At which point the AO was moved ashore to Alicante.
Yes.
And it was set up there, but I guess it wasn't, the Spanish relationships were poor, because then my mother was sent to Scotland to set up the AO Edinburgh, AO UK.
That's right.
But not at St. Hill, because Scientology was banned in England.
That's
so it was set up in Edinburgh, And that's when the AO was then moved from Alicante up to Edinburgh, because my mother was the first commanding officer up there.
Right. Alicante was just a makeshift.
Right.
I and Peggy Bankston went on that mission to Alicante to try to find, Hubbard wanted us to find a place for, I don't know how many OT3 students were on board. I think complete with staff, it was about 150 people. He wanted us to find a place overnight for 150 people to get us. And we did. We managed it. It was a miracle. I have no idea how we managed it. It just materialized. We had the place ready at 9 o'clock. The buses came. Everybody poured out. The place was ready for them. And but that was a makeshift, Janis. That was just rolled over until something else could be done, because he wasn't wanted in Spain anymore.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so that's another piece of Scientology history.
Right.
Yeah. Those are amazing stories, Hana, and we're really glad that we had you on, because like we said, you're one of the last people that was at that Las Palmas villa when Hubbard was there, and you helped to set the record straight on that, and also give a little bit of the back history, and we really appreciate that. And of course, we'll have you on hopefully in the future as well.
And you're very welcome, Mark and Janis. Yeah.
And I have enjoyed it so much, because it's rare that I can get someone else from that time period to chat with and laugh about the stupid things we did.
Exactly, Janis. I know. Gosh, we got caught up in the fairy tale, didn't we? Yeah.
That's great.
Well, thank you, guys.
Hana. Until next time, we'll see you later, Hana, okay?
Perfect. Okay.
Bye, Hana.
Bye-bye, guys.
Okay.
Janis, that was a lot of fun, right? Having Hana there?
Oh, I enjoyed that so much, chatting with someone that knew the same things I did, and was there while I was there. And yeah, that was great.
That's great. I know. We're going to have her on some more. She was, like you said, around from day one, and has a long history with Hubbard and Scientology. And then she left, and then she became an outspoken critic, and one of the first old guard critics of Hubbard and Scientology, with her husband Jerry, in the press and media and stuff. So we've got a lot of things we'd like to talk to her about.
Yeah. But she's been busy working on her book, which is why she hasn't come on sooner. Yeah. But she took a break in order to do this one, because she knew it'd be fast and short.
That's great. Yeah. Okay, everybody. Before we go, I just wanted to mention we've got Janis's OUTBACK Natural Complete Liquid Multivitamins. You can order them here at our site, on our show, at our merchandise website down below. Just go in the video description, click on that. And it's got all your daily vitamins in a liquid form. You take 2 tablespoons, or I like to pour it in a little shot glass, take it down, and you've got taken your vitamins for the day. And as Janis likes to say, it's ditch the pills, drink the power. Right, Janis?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of wonderful comments on this product and how much people enjoy it, and it's helped them. Absolutely.
Well, anyway, you can click on the merchandise link down below in our video description if you'd like to order it in the United States. Janis will ship it out to you, or you can go to vites.com. That's VITES.com, and you can order it there. That's Janis's website. So I just wanted to mention that we appreciate Janis's work in that, the vitamins and health and nutrition section. Yes. Please subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Hit that like button, hit that notification button. We really appreciate it. It helps us get the word out to different people and who aren't familiar with our channel. Also, if you have any questions or comments about what we talked about today here with Hana, please go down below. We read them all, and we'll answer any questions that we can in them. So we appreciate the feedback on that. And then if you'd like to support our channel, you can buy us a coffee. There's a link in the video description where you click on it. It's just a way to support the channel. We've got some minor expenses that it costs us to put the show on, and it helps to defray those costs. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that. And Janis, have you got anything else you'd like to say before we end this video?
No, I enjoyed that. So I hope everybody else did too. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right, everybody, until next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.